Welcome back to the GreenLight Investor for the week ending September 11th, 2015. Our goal at the GreenLight Investor is to provide a resource to make managing your 401k both a simple and easy process. We do this by using red, green, and yellow cells in our worksheets to help you decide when to buy, what to buy, and when to sell. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be taken as personal investment advice. I'll be using a number of examples, and that's exactly what they are. They're examples of how you can use this worksheet to help make investment choices within your 401k. Please refer to your own investment policy to make sure that your choices are both appropriate for your investment time horizon as well as your understanding and acceptance for taking risks in financial markets. If you have any questions whatsoever, please contact a qualified financial advisor and review the choices before putting your money into the markets. With that said, let's go ahead and go right into our worksheet. The worksheet is updated each week and it's separated into three separate sections. First is the investment choices, performance, and the current weekly trends. The investment choices are highlighted by showing the different columns that have the fund number, the symbols, the fund name, and a brief description of what the fund is. At the top of the investment choices, we have the core investments, which are your index funds. As we scroll down the worksheet, we'll go into the satellite investments, and those start out with the money market. Then we go into your fixed income, U.S. growth and income, the equity funds, the international funds, and finally we'll have the sector funds at the bottom. Generally, the more aggressive funds are towards the bottom, and the more conservative funds are towards the top. Center section, we update the performance for each of the funds each week. We'll highlight the closing price, the month-to-date return, the quarter-to-date return, and the year-to-date return. This is important so you can keep track of how your investments are doing against other investment choices within your different selections. Remember, you're always able to change. It's like being in a horse race where you're able to change your bet during the race and stick with the faster horses and stay away from the ones that are falling behind. Finally, we'll get into what I think is the most important and unique part of this worksheet, and that's the current weekly trends. Column V each week will update the relative strength change, and that shows the week-over-week change in the relative strength for each of the funds shown. When you see a bright green light in this column, that'll be one of the funds that has performed the strongest on a week-over-week basis. And when you see the bright red lights, those will be the funds that have been generally the weaker relative strength of all the funds that we're tracking. As you scroll down, you'll be able to quickly take your eye to the stronger funds as well as the weaker funds. Each week we'll also update and keep track of a weekly trend score. When the trends are positive, you'll see green lights as you see down here. Once the trends turn negative, we'll switch over to the red lights. What you'll also see is that in each of the cells each week will give a numerical value that will give a rating for the relative strength for each of the funds. The reason that I think this is unique and very helpful is it'll give you a little bit of a heads up as to whether the funds that you're looking at are getting stronger or weaker based on whether the numerical values are getting stronger or weaker. Let's go ahead and scroll down. When you see a lot of red, it's generally showing a very weak market, and that's what we've recently seen. One of the real bright spots here, though, is we're starting to see a couple of the green lights reappear. So that's a good chance to take money that's been allocated to the money market during the period that we've been in all the red cells and start finding the fastest horses out of the gates, which will be the first green lights to show up. So we'll be going over that a little bit more tonight. We're still in a lot of red, so it's still very cautious. and I would only suggest for very aggressive and risk-tolerant investors to start moving back into these funds. If the trend does continue higher, you'll have a very early entry into the funds, but if this is a false move, you could be in for additional risk to the downside. So that's a choice you have to make as an investor. And again, the more aggressive investors would look to get in early. A more conservative investor would tend to wait until you start to see more green lights appearing, which would show general strength in the overall market. With that said, let's go ahead and see how we can use this system to allocate the funds within your 401k. If you go up to the top ribbon and click on the View, Custom Views, into the My Allocation, and then click Show, we'll show what the allocation is. If you're uncertain, and we're invested 100% in cash, as you can see, during all of the period of the red lights shown, we moved the investments to 100% into the retirement trust. And so what we'll be looking for is to reallocate to the green lights as they start to appear. To decide on which fund you go into, a couple of things. First thing I would suggest, if we are just starting out, would be to click on our asset allocation questionnaire, and that'll give you a real simple generalized guideline as to how you might want to allocate assets based primarily on your age and your ability to take risk. There's 10 simple questions if you go down this worksheet and answer all of them. You can submit once you've answered them according to your preferences. And what will happen is you will get a general pie chart that will show you that you should be 50% in equities, 45% in fixed income, and 5% cash based on the choices that were made in the above questionnaire. So fill out the questionnaire honestly, and then you can look at the pie chart and it'll give you a general idea as to how you may want to allocate assets if you don't have your own preferences. Let's go back and see how the GreenLight investing system can also help with this. So once you have your allocation set up by the pie chart, you can then go ahead and click on the amount that you want to allocate to each of these different categories, and then as green lights appear, you make choices based on the green lights. So let's scroll down. We're 100% in cash, and we're looking to see which investments we want to start going into. We have a 30% allocation based on a prior pie chart that we looked at. And so what we would scroll down, and if we're an aggressive investor, we would see that there's 2 green lights here. So we could start making an allocation today. I'm going to wait one more week. I generally like to see 2 weeks of green lights before I allocate capital to a new investment. So we'll wait. But just for example, if you were a very aggressive investor, you could go ahead and start putting capital in and say you could put 20% into this right now. Again, scrolling down, we're still seeing an awful lot of red, so it wouldn't be appropriate to get in quite yet. But what we do is we do look for the green lights to start appearing, and that's generally the best way for us to go ahead and use this system to allocate capital back into the markets. Aside from the U.S. equity fund that we saw, we're seeing also one other fund down here in the section, in the sector section, and that's showing a green light in the long-term trend column, which is very important. We like to see the long-term trend green or bullish, and we like to see the week-over-week trend strengthening, as well as a green light when we enter into column V. So right now you can see, again, based on a prior asset allocation questionnaire we filled in, we'd like to have 15% in this category. So if we were an aggressive investor, you might want to go ahead and put a 5 or 10% allocation into this first green light that has appeared. And then as these green lights appear, you fill out your allocation until you have the appropriate amounts. So we try to make it very simple, very easy, and take a lot of the guesswork out of allocating the assets to the different categories. I hope this has been a helpful worksheet. If we do see green lights continue, we'll be doing more allocations, but I wanted to just show you the general procedure, how we'll be getting back into the markets. And as I said, if you're a very aggressive investor, you could start with these first green lights. If you're more conservative, you may want to wait just a little bit longer and see a few more green lights appear and make sure that we're seeing a strengthening trend rather than just a 1 week trend. Let's go back to our overall worksheet. Click on the with performance columns and then you click show, and we'll go back to our worksheet. That's what I've got for this evening. I hope it's been helpful and gives you some ideas and resources to manage your 401k. The past several months we've shown methods for exiting the markets as they've gotten weaker, and now it's exciting because we're finally getting a chance to see how we can use the GreenLight system to re-enter and reallocate assets to your 401k. If you have any questions, you can always email me at the above email, or you can go to greenlightinvestor.org. I'll post all of this information and you can go through it on our website. If you'd like to get a personalized spreadsheet sent to you, just send me an email saying you'd like to be added to the distribution list. I want to thank you for taking time out of your weekend to watch this presentation. And again, I hope it's been helpful. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you again.